Just to give you a quick introduction about myself before, can I take this? Yeah, maybe easier like this. So just a quick intro about myself. So yeah, I'm a president of a French trade union, but I'm also, I launched a brand in France with my business partners. We're #1 CBD brand in France, also sold in the UK. So we have a food supplement range, a cosmetics range, and just a pure CBD range. We're launching a medical cannabis in France next year in 2024 with a new law coming out. And we're also from the start, so we started in 2018, sorry, and we're involved with regulation from the start, so also at European, UK, and French level. So that's why we created this trade union in France called Vivec. It's a bit of a long name. It was necessary because we wanted to have good discussions with government, and if you call yourself a cannabis union, it starts on the wrong foot, so it's better to have a complicated name, as you probably know. Our vision was to bring companies that are already operating in ingredient manufacturing, cosmetics, food supplements, medicines, etc., into the cannabis sector, because if it's just people from the cannabis industry, it's usually smaller companies, more like pioneers, etc. And to gain credibility, you need well-established companies. So we tried. Actually, I have a member here from France who's right here. But we try to have like really big, like listed companies, also smaller startups as well. So right now we have about 60 to 65 members. We also have like really large retailer chains, etc., that are members that are on trade union. And our vision was to have people from all around the value chain. So it starts with culture up to the ingredient manufacturing, to the product manufacturing, of course, the sale of these products. And we're interested in all cannabinoids, so CBD, of course, but also CBG, CBC, CBN, etc. And more recently, THC for the medical side of things. So what we do, so we're, as I said, interested into legal hemp extracts and THC and how we can manufacture them, how we can put them in food, cosmetics, pet food, and medical cannabis. We're not active on synthetical cannabinoids or other hemp markets, such as fiber, seeds, etc. And we're not positioned on the smokable market as well. Although we do follow the market. We're not selling any flowers or anything like this. So our mission is pretty standard for a trade union. So we just basically represent our members with government, etc. And also we have a mission to stimulate and kind of create the market, and also educate a lot. I think education is probably the most essential part, whether it's with official government agencies, or for instance with semi-public, like the European funds, or like the French Public Investment Bank. So what we do is we are present at both French and European level. So French with all the different ministries and administrations. France is a country with a lot of administrations. And at European level, so that's with the Commission directly and different agencies that have the EFSA, which is the European Food Safety Agency, you probably know about. Just a quick few figures about the market. I think you probably know this, but the figures around CBD are probably inflated all around the world. When people announce it's a $10 billion market, it's not true. I think the global market in the US was said to reach $5 billion. I think it's a bit too much, in my opinion. Right now, I believe it's more around 2 billion, to be fair. In the UK, official figures were around, I think it was 850 million. The real figure is closer to 150. But the fact is, you can see CBD being sold everywhere in major supermarket chains. You can see it in the US, CVS, Walgreens. I think one of the most impressive countries is the UK, where you actually have CBD sold by Amazon. It's a special program. So you can see the big players getting into CBD, like the big internet players, and you can see CBD like in the most of the retail chains. If you look at the market, like the estimations that we made alongside other European syndicates, so we believe the market could reach, if there's proper regulation around Europe, around 3 billion euros. 11 billion for medical cannabis. So medical cannabis is way bigger than just the CBD market. And when we look at the CBD products, we believe that about half of the CBD market should be for food supplements. And we include oil in food supplements. A bit more of a zoom on the French market. Right now, the French market is the fastest growing market for CBD in Europe. I think today it's bigger than the UK. So we had an estimate of about 1 billion by 2025. If regulation comes into play, etc., it's about 70% market share for CBD food products. It's easy. Just look at the stores. So we have more than 1,000 specialized CBD shops. They sell flowers, they sell cosmetics, food, etc. We have like high street retail has been selling CBD for just about a year. And we have about 15,000 pharmacies that have started selling CBD. If you go back a year ago, you'd have approximately the same number of CBD shops, 0 high street retail, and maybe like 100 pharmacies. So it's been booming recently. Last year, we had a survey with our members and by getting a number of sales from supermarkets, etc. In 2022, the market for CBD food products in France was around 150 million, about 300 million for smokable flowers. Point of today is to talk about regulation and the challenges that we are facing globally and see how it can be useful maybe for Asia moving forward. So let's have a look at EU regulation first. Interestingly enough, if you look at EU regulation, there is no specific restrictions when it comes to cultivating hemp. So that's the general framework, but in reality, when you look closer, each different country can have a different set of rules, which makes it a bit unique. But normally at EU level, there's no specific restrictions except a THC level, which is for the whole plant. So that means the flower of a plant can be above that said threshold. And there's a list of authorized varieties which you can cultivate within the EU. So normally you can cultivate this anywhere in the EU. That's the theory. For finished products, depending on what kind of finished products we're talking about, it's different regulations. When it comes to, I'll start with cosmetics first because it's the easy one. So cosmetics are normally allowed, CBD cosmetics are normally allowed in the EU, but you can see there's some differences between a few countries. For instance, Portugal, they don't like CBD cosmetics for some reason, so you can't really sell it there, but it should be allowed. Why? Because CBD is not considered a narcotic anymore at European level. But it's always about what kind of traces of THC and can be found in the various products. If we look at the main issue here, the novel food catalog, I don't know if some of you know about novel food regulation. So the novel food is a regulation in Europe for new ingredients. And basically, if you want to market an ingredient which was not sold before 1997 in the European Union, you have to prove that it's safe. And how do you prove that it's safe? You build up a dossier that you submit to the European Food and Food Safety Agency, and it can take up to like 2 to 3 years to get a validation. The problem with CBD is that usually you have about 20 to 30 novel food dossiers for all ingredients every year. For CBD, it was about 200 dossiers in about 2 years. So that's like 5-year work for the European Commission that they had to handle. So it has been huge delays at European level. And the European Food Safety Agency has tried to set a few recommendations for dossiers. So in June last year, maybe you heard of this, they had an official statement around CBD saying that they could not conclude that CBD was safe or dangerous. So thank you for that. And that additional studies were needed to study specific effects on CBD on the long term. The problem is with CBD, we have a drug called Epidiolex and another one called Sativex from GW Pharma. And because of the data in their dossiers, basically, we know that CBD can be problematic at certain high levels on the liver and on other parts of the body. The problem is, from a food safety authority point of view, you need to assess what are the implications of that when you put it in general food like chocolate or drinks, or in food supplements. So because we know that at high levels we have this kind of problems with CBD products, we need to make sure that even in lower dosages we don't have these problems. So this is what makes the situation in the EU a bit complicated for food, because normally you shouldn't see any CBD products sold in Europe legally. That's, once again, theory. If you look at the EU right now, the Netherlands really never gave a fuck about novel food, whether for insects or anything, so they just sell CBD, they don't care. There's just a THC limit. Normally France is super tight on novel food. For some reason, you have CBD everywhere in France. It was never enforced. I'll get back to that a bit later. Italy has been crazy on novel food. Like, you can't sell a single CBD oil into retail, but you can sell it massively online, so it doesn't make any sense. Germany depends on in which region you are. So it's kind of it's completely different depending on the country. And that's the problem with that EU regulation, is that there's a good frame, but in reality it's unapplicable. And because there is no common enforcement between the different countries, each country is free to enforce or not enforce. And in terms of novel food validation, because of a process, we're not expecting any novel food, any CBD or CBG or whatever, extract to be validated before, I'd say, about 24 to 36 months. So that's 2 to 3 years. That's pretty long, but the day this happens, that means that instantly you can sell CBD as long as it respects what's in the dossier anywhere in Europe. So that's the good thing about Europe. So the day it goes through, you can sell it anywhere in Europe. Once again, that's theory. So we'll see how that ends up working. In the UK, so the UK used to have EU law before. When they quit the EU, they adopted the European regulation, but kind of transformed it in their own way. So for a novel food situation, so they have the same novel food process, but in the novel food regulation, there's a specific article that allows you to keep products on the market while you are doing the novel food submission, and it's what they adopted. So basically in the UK, there's a list of 12,000 products which are authorized to sell. I know this very well because I have a few products on that list. But the weird thing is, you can't have any new products, because to be sold, you need to have been on the market before February 2020. So basically, that means there can be no new innovations when it comes to CBD products in the UK. If you want to launch a new product, you need to submit the dossier and go for all over again. So it's going to take about 2 to 3 years as well. But the UK is one of the only countries in the world that actually set out a few guidelines and recommendations on a maximum CBD intake, safety warnings on the labels, so not for pregnant women. You have to take to check with a doctor if you take medication, etc. It's basic stuff, but at least the British FSA actually made these recommendations, and I think it's a really good step forward. It's better than nothing. And on the other products, so there's nothing specific on hemp flowers, but on cosmetics, sorry, but hemp flowers are prohibited, so you can't sell smokable hemp flowers in the UK. The important thing is here, it's kind of the same with the EU, is that theoretically you can't launch any new product, and if you want to do something, it's going to take quite some time. So just be prepared and be aware of this. Let's have a look in France, which is a market I know pretty well as well. So before the Canna vape ruling in Europe, which changed the status of CBD, basically, you couldn't grow hemp flowers in France, which is a shame, because France is the biggest hemp producer by far in Europe. About half of the European hemp is cultivated in France, mostly for fibers, paper, etc. But before the new regulation came into force last year, you couldn't do anything with the flowers, so you just had them, but you couldn't do anything with them. Doesn't make any sense. But with a new regulation that came out last year, so you can finally use the flowers, etc. That means you can manufacture CBD, CBG, CBC, whatever, as long as the THC level is not above 0.3. Why 0.3? Well, that's the French logic. Since the new European level for THC in cultivation is 0.3 for industrial hemp, let's put 0.3 for extracts. That's it. Doesn't make any sense, but that's the logic. And when you look at the finished products, so in the regulation, there's nothing about finished products. So no specific regulations for food, for cosmetics, etc. At some point, they even said that you could put THC in cosmetics, when they retracted, but it's to show how much they don't really care. But we actually managed, after about 18 months talking with the French authorities and government, about a week ago, we finally obtained the possibility to declare food products as a food supplement in France, the conditions with CBD, but you have to respect a maximum daily intake of 50 milligram and a maximum concentration of 20% of CBD in oils, for instance. So that's the beauty about the French system. It's a notification process. It's not an authorization process. So French authorities, by doing that, say, okay, you can sell CBD even though it's novel food in the meantime, so we tolerate it, we officially tolerate it, but it's not an authorization process because we don't want to be angry with the European Commission. But basically, it's a tolerance regime. About the US, US is pretty interesting as well. I mean, as you know, I think CBD really originated in the US with the whole market, etc. But the truth is, there's no federal regulation, so it's kind of a nightmare if you're a US brand, because if you sell in California, it's not the same rules in New York, not the same labeling rules, etc. And actually, the FDA, so the Food and Drug Administration Authority, sorry, was criticized by both professionals and consumers about having clear guidelines and rules. So recently, they were pushed by Congress to come up with a regulation, and the FDA just replied, I think it was about a month ago, that basically the rules for food supplements are not enough to handle CBD. So they're just giving the ball back to Congress and say, okay, you need to do a new regulation. So right now we've got the federal agency that doesn't want to regulate CBD. They point out a few uncertainty about toxicity, safety, etc. The same as EFSA, to be fair. But basically, they say, okay, it's not on us. So you politicians do the work, and we'll see. So what could potentially happen is that it actually goes through the Farm Bill next year. So let's see. But in the meantime, in the US, you don't have any federal laws. So some states allow CBD, some don't. And it's really a pain because even for banking, for instance, you can't transfer funds between two different states if you're doing in CBD. So it can be really painful. Oops. Just a few takeaways about the CBD market. What we can see is that basically we need agencies, and I think it's going to be the same for potentially for Thailand and tomorrow in broader Asia, but there's a need to set a daily intake limit for CBD. So generally somewhere ranging between 50 and 100 milligram. Depending on the scientific reviews that you're reading, I could really say those should be around 20 milligram, but it can go a bit more than that as well. You need to set a THC limit in food. That's really important. As you've seen with the French law, the 0.3 doesn't make any sense. But on the other end, and there's been a lot of studies about this, even a minimum dose of THC can have implications and interactions with medicine, etc. So we need to have a proper limit for THC. Of course, we need labeling and safety warnings on CBD products, etc. So that's really for food, and I think food is definitely the biggest market when it comes to cannabinoid products. And then for other markets, well, we need to understand what clear is an ingredient. Are we talking about isolate? What is an isolate? Is it 95? Is it 98%? So we need to have clear rule on this. What's the difference between a full spectrum and a broad spectrum? Sometimes you can see people actually selling broad spectrum as a full spectrum. So we need to have clear rules about this. And for instance, right now in France, well, full spectrum is prohibited if you read the law correctly. On cosmetic products, usually there's no big restrictions, whereas, of course, the THC content. And an important thing as well, and this has been seen in Japan recently, is that you need to be able to produce the ingredients from all parts of the plant. What we see right now in the markets is completely ludicrous. I mean, you can see some CBD products that are officially made out of fiber and seeds, mixed CBD. I mean, that's a fake. So we need, I mean, the laws need to take that into account and to be able to produce ingredients from all the parts of the plant. And then you've got the problem with the hemp flower and leaves. Is it a smokable product? Is it an herbal tea? What is it? And what's depending on the status, it's going to be about the taxation of a product. If it's a tobacco product, it should be taxed maybe as cigarettes, have health warnings, etc. If it's a tea, what is the THC limit? Does it go into hot water, etc., etc. So there's a lot of rules that you need to think of. And I think in the meantime, while all the regulation is being written, etc., I think the British example is pretty good. At least they had a few recommendations and guidelines, nothing really official, but still they gave a vision of how they would understand and regulate the market. So this is basically our vision as well, is that, so as discussed, you need proper rules for the sale of CBD products, and this is while operators actually do the science on toxicity and safety, etc. And for cosmetics, it's also what actual amount of CBD goes through the skin and in your body. This is studies that are being concluded right now. You need also to control, or at least to monitor, extraction activities. In France, before the new law came out, if you wanted to produce CBD, you need to have a narcotic license. Now, you don't need it anymore, but the problem is, in the process, you actually do manufacture THC. So what happens with that THC? Are you a drug trafficker because you handle THC? When you transport like a crude oil at 1% THC, what are you? So this kind of problem needs to be addressed. And I mean, it's gonna be the same in any country, especially in regards to transport, manipulation, and of course, sale of these products. And then you've got the analytical problem, but I'll get to that a bit later on. Let's talk about medical cannabis a bit. When we're talking about medical cannabis, I'd say we've got two big different kind of product types. On the one hand, we've got the prescription drugs, Vidalex, Sativex, etc., which were designed for specific conditions, epilepsy, etc. Targeted needs for targeted patients, basically, usually smaller populations. And then you have what we've seen in Germany, for instance, what we can see in America as well. You have flowers, oils, tinctures, sometimes some soft gels, etc., which are basically THC or CBD or a combination of both with different ratio that are prescribed or given to patients. But when you think of it, it's two completely different kind of product types. The one on the left is about a 10-year R&D. This one can be put on the market tomorrow. So when we look at the flowers and tinctures, I mean, a lot of people spoke about this yesterday about the EU GMP or a GACP, but it's the same for when you look at the API. Today, to manufacture a pharma-grade CBD isolates is about 10 times more expensive than a food-grade one. And when you look at medical cannabis, the big complexity is, okay, what are the rules in the country that we're talking about? Is it France, is it Germany, etc.? Is it the US, is it Thailand? The rules are going to be different. Why? Because there's going to be a different culture about health, how they approach health, etc. There's going to be a different healthcare system. So basically, all the questions that we need to think about is, okay, how does the system work? Are patients getting reimbursed for their healthcare, etc.? For which conditions is medical CBD going to be prescribed? Is it as a pain relief? Is it as a general life enhancer or something? Is it for specific targeted conditions? And this needs to be addressed, I mean, whatever country. In which format is it going to be sold? We mentioned there was a talk about soft gels yesterday. Is it going to be flowers? And there's a real difference between the formats that are currently available to the public and what the public is actually expecting. And that needs to be addressed as well. How are the doctors trained? This is a big issue as well. We can see in France is that no one, okay, we know medical cannabis is something, but what is it for? I mean, if the doctors don't know, you need to have training of the doctors, basically. Where are the products sold? Is it in pharmacies? Is it in dispensaries? What's the system? Depending on the country, it's going to be different. And of course, what interactions with narcotic law? This can seem kind of stupid, but basically, if you're a cannabis patient, you're having a CBD THC, I don't know, like 2 or 3% THC oil, and you're driving. What happens? So this needs to be addressed, and this is depending on, I mean, each country has different set of rules, and this is what makes medical cannabis so complicated, is that each country is going to be different. There's not going to be a single market, whereas there's going to be one for food or cosmetics. Let's talk a bit about recreational cannabis now. This one is even more complex. So I'm from France. So for those of you who don't know, France is actually the biggest cannabis consumer per inhabitant in Europe. About 10% of French people smoke, so that's quite a lot. But we have one of the toughest anti-cannabis laws in Europe, so it doesn't make any sense. But still, why is recreational cannabis not that an easy subject? Because of course, when you look at the figures from like the health figures from cannabis consumption reduction, etc., prevention, yeah, recreational cannabis can seem like a good idea, but then you've got all the social issues. In France, there's about 300,000 people living off the illegal market. So what happens the day that you legalize? It's a political subject more than anything else, but that is one of the major hurdles. I mean, especially for France, but it's the same in the US. It's the same anywhere. Depending on the market, the way the illegal market is structured, there's going to be a huge difference. I think it's easier for a country where there is not that much illegal cannabis to actually legalize it. And then you've got all the complexity that you have today with banking, with taxes. How do you tax recreational cannabis? Is it a smokable product? Is it like tobacco? Is it like alcohol? And right now, in the current healthcare system, does it make sense to actually legalize a new narcotic? Because one of the arguments is, okay, but alcohol is legal, but does it make sense to put a new one on the market? So it's always a political and societal issue more than anything else. And also then you've got the law side of things today, and that's one of the big hurdles currently in Europe. We can see it with Germany. Everyone is watching what's going to happen with Germany, because if they go through with a project, right now it's in the hands of the European Commission. It's interesting to see how the European Commission is going to consider the project in regards to international laws. Will Germany find a solution basically to legalize recreational cannabis? And I think there's a lot of international actors, mostly from the US or Canada, which were pretty disappointed when they saw the first draft of the German recreational project, because basically you can't have any outside production outside of Germany. So there's a lot of complex interactions with international law when it comes to recreational cannabis, and I'm quite curious as to what's going to happen in the EU with Germany, but potentially it's going to unlock that legal problem, but still a lot of other issues to address. And if I take the French example, the biggest problem is how to basically create new jobs, etc., for the legal economy. And then last topic I wanted to talk about is the analytical issue. So today, when you try and test, let's say a CBD oil, for instance, and you try it for CBD, THC, CBN, whatever, the problem is if you send it to 3 different labs, you're going to get 3 different results. So, I mean, if it's just a small difference, it's okay. But the day you start and export your products, how do you prove to the local customs that, yeah, your product is without THC or a certain level, etc.? And how does the consumer trust your testing? There was a study, I think it was about 2 years ago in the UK. They tested a lot of products, and I think it was more than 50% didn't have a right advertised CBD level, somewhere above, somewhere under. And you got 2 different reasons. You got, I'd say, unlawful operators, and then you just have like really bad testing. So how do we change that? The problem is with analytical testing, most of the of the testing was usually done for narcotic-related cases on flowers, etc. And there is no standardized or harmonized method when it comes to testing. So we need to find a new one, and we need actually to set like a proper guideline or reference when it comes to that. So that's why we initiated a European ring test. So we're actually we actually presented that in front of the European Commission in March last year. So the good news is the Chinese are willing to move on that. Why? Because China is the biggest hemp producer, and they actually have a few products around hemp seed, and they want to have an ISO norm on how do you test cannabinoids in hemp seed related products. So the good news is that this ISO norm project actually made some noise at the ISO committee, and that's how we managed to launch our ring test in Europe. So basically what we're doing right now is we're testing 3 different methods. So HPLC, it's LCMS and LSMS, and GCMS. So what we're doing is working with about 20 to 25 public and private labs throughout Europe. So we're testing CBD, CBD isolate and CBD broad spectrum to compare the results and then come up with an international norm. So the French norm is going to come out, I hope, by the end of the year, the European norm in 2 to 3 years, and an ISO norm, before being optimistic, in 5 to 6 years. So this is one of the issues we're trying to address, but I think you can't have a reliable industry if you don't have a reliable testing. And that's a problem for flowers, for oils, for cosmetics, whatever the product. And I think I'm done.